talk about redistricting. Now, we came together through Chris Gibson. And right now, most of us in this room are in a position where we're going to lose him. And I'm not quite past the crying stage, so I'm not going to talk about it much because I might cry. Most of you guys who know me know that I do cry very easily, especially when it comes to Chris. However, where we are right now, it's still up in the air. The way that the magistrate, Roanne Mann is her name, drew the lines, her proposed lines, has put southern Saratoga County in the 21st district. Northern Saratoga County, and I believe that incorporates Boston Spa as well, north of Clifton Park and Half Moon and Malta, with the exception of Global Foundries, puts that into the 23rd, Bill Owens district. Wave the
Saratoga Springs higher.
Yeah, I believe that was
yeah.
Bill Owens district, who is a Democrat up north. And what Judge Mann gave Chris was about 44% of his district. Mostly down Greene County. He may pick up Sullivan and Ulster. It's a heavily Democrat area. If these lines hold, he's going to have a tough time. We are going to have a tough time if we gain Tonko. That's the prospect right now. That's the prospect right now. But a very patriotic man stepped up to the plate. You know how hard it is to find good people to step up to the plate and sacrifice their time and their family time to run and do something to help the people. And we're here to learn about that man that stepped up the plate and is hoping to challenge Tonko and could possibly, should Judge Mann's line stand, deadline is Thursday, he could very well be the man that we're going to be fighting for. And I'd like to introduce Bob Dieterich.
And thank you everyone for having me here today. I appreciate it, and the fact that you're here on such a beautiful night, talking to me instead of being home with your family and friends and doing the things you could be doing shows your true commitment to the district and to your country. So I applaud you guys, and again, thank you for having me. My name is Bob Dieterich. I'm a candidate for Congress. I announced my candidacy last week on Wednesday. So I've been hitting the campaign really hard over the past 5 or 6 days, and we're going to hit a lot harder over the next 8 months. I know we've only been hitting the campaign for 6 days, but the fact is I've been working on this a lot longer than that. We started thinking about this really a couple of years ago, really when Obamacare and all that stuff started to come around. I'm the CFO of a bank. In fact, I was just elected CFO of the year for the Capital District Business Review. But what I do is look at financial stuff. And I started looking at the nation, and what I saw, frankly, scared the heck out of me. I could not believe what I saw. And this was probably going back 3 years. So I didn't know exactly how to deal with it, what to do. I started thinking about Congress, started talking to supposedly the right people, and they said, no, Bob, you know what, it's this guy's turn, he's going to run. And I think the guy was probably a good guy. He didn't end up winning, but, and I spoke with him for a while, but after that I said, you know what, I'm not going to let that dictate what I do. From this point forward, I'm going to control my destiny, and I'm going to make this happen. So I went down to Washington, D.C. I ended up, the first thing I did was I asked them to set me up with a few congressmen that had kids my age, my kids' ages. And I wanted to know that this was something we could do without destroying our family. You hear a lot about people, getting into trouble and all these different things they do. So I met with a few congressmen, and it seemed very doable. They had systems, and yet it took some effort, but you can do it. So I had brought my wife down, and we said, you know what, we can do this. She ended up meeting one of the congressmen's wives. They hit it off, and they had kids the same age as ours. So we ended up taking it to the next level. And as I told you, the real driving force behind what I'm doing was the debt and the deficit. And we looked at our kids and said, you know what, we've got at least, at a minimum, I want them to say, my father tried. And that's if we lose, but the fact is we're not going to lose. as long as we get in, I think we can make a lot of change. And I think Congressman Gibson is a good example of a sincere congressman that's willing to do the things we need to do to fix this country. And there are others like him, and you may not see them always on TV, but they are there. And in fact, a lot of people have told me I'm putting the cart before the horse. But I'm trying to build this coalition of very sincere congressmen that understand the issues and are willing to kind of come together. Because I'm afraid, I thought just like I got bumped out of the nomination that I get down there and I'm Bob Dieterich, one guy, one district, out of New York, nobody cares what I say. If I can have half a dozen congressmen and we can say this is what we want to do to the Speaker of the House, this is why we want to do it and start building that coalition, now we have a voice and we can actually affect change. I believe strongly in term limits. I have a self-imposed term limit of 6 years. I want to go down there, get this job done, and come home. And that's why I want to put together this group. I'm trying to put that cart, I guess, a little bit ahead of the horse so that I can hit the ground running. When we get there, we can make the changes we need to make, and then I can get back to my family. So that's a little bit of background. The driving force, as I said, for my whole candidacy is debt and deficit. And I don't think it's getting the recognition that it deserves. I don't think people understand how serious the situation is. And I think the reason they don't really understand is, and it's not being talked about a lot, is because they haven't felt the effects yet. When I started looking at this, the debt, the national debt, was about 10 trillion. To round it off, it was about 10 trillion, which is a huge number. It's staggering. Nobody really knows what that means, but it's a big number. The interest we were paying on that was about $425 billion. Every year, that's what we were paying in interest. Here we are, say 4 years later, we're over 15 trillion. Guess what? We're still paying $425 billion in interest. It's almost identical. It really hasn't changed. Even though our debt has gone up 50%, the rates have come down so far that it's masked that. And it's starting to creep up a little bit just because those rates can't keep up with the growth in the debt. And that's why I don't think anybody's really looking at it. But right now we're paying 2.3% on that debt. Normally, say over the past 20 years, we're paying well over double that. So to normalize those rates, and in fact, if you go back even further, it goes over 6%. So doubling it would be 4.6. If you double your debt, if you double your rate, and your debt goes up another 50%, you're at, say, 20 trillion, and now you're paying double the rate, and I think that's being conservative, you're well over $1 trillion, $1.2 trillion in interest, just interest. And there's no productivity that goes along with it. That's basically, and almost 50% of it is held outside of the United States. So now we're sending out all this money overseas and getting nothing. I mean, we're upset that we're sending money overseas for oil. This is for nothing, absolutely nothing. We're only bringing in about 2.5 trillion in taxes. So now you're getting up to 40% of your national budget in interest. You can't survive. That's not sustainable. And that doesn't even take into account, you hear a lot about unfunded liabilities. Those are the other liabilities that are going to come due, basically as a result of the demographic shifts that are going to hit us on Social Security, where we have an aging population, and Medicare, Medicaid, all these things basically will leave the next generation, and I say next generation, but I mean, like my oldest daughter is 13. She's going to be dealing with this as an adult. Within 5 years, she's going to be 18. Guess what? This is where we're going to be. There's not enough time to wait. And if you think the solutions could be painful now, wait 5 years and see what really painful solutions are. We can't afford to do that. And that's why I stepped up to do this. It's not something I never had this grand desire to be a congressman and work in Washington. I'm looking at it more as, I guess, more similar to a military enlistment or employment, where we're going to do this job, and then I'm coming home. And that's what I want to do. There's 700,000 people in whatever district this becomes. I can't do it alone. It's going to take groups like you and a lot of them to really make this happen. My opponent and the potential congressman up here would be Paul Tonko. He's tied to be the most liberal member of Congress. He's tied with 17 others. It's a big tie, but he's still, that's what you're going from. You're going from a